Her train came in a blizzard. The cowboy waited and whispered, "I wouldn't miss you." The night was cold and quiet, but the storm was not. Snow fell from the sky without stopping. The wind pushed it in every direction, covering the ground, the tracks, and the small train station. The lantern near the platform moved again and again, its light shaking in the strong wind. Most people had already gone home. The station master had closed his office early. He looked outside one last time and shook his head. "No train will come in this weather," he said to himself before going inside. But one man stayed. Eli Turner stood alone on the platform. His boots were deep in the snow, and his coat was covered in white. The cold wind hit his face again and again, but he did not move. His hat was pulled down low, and his hands were inside his coat to stay warm. Still, he waited. Anyone who saw him would think he was strange. Why would someone stand outside in a storm like this? Why not go inside where it was warm? But Eli had a reason. He was not waiting for the storm to stop. He was waiting for someone. 5 years ago, Clara had left this town. She had dreams bigger than this small place. She wanted to see new cities, meet new people, and live a different life. Eli remembered the day she left. The train had been full, the sky had been clear, and she had smiled as she waved goodbye. He had smiled too, but it was not easy. After she left, everything felt different. The town stayed the same buildings, the same people, the same quiet streets. But for Eli, something was missing. Days became longer, and nights became quieter. At first, Clara sent letters. She wrote about the places she visited and the things she saw. Big cities, bright lights, and new chances. Eli read every letter carefully. He kept them safe, folding them neatly and placing them in a small box. Then one day, the letters stopped. Weeks turned into months. Months turned into years. Most people would have forgotten, but Eli did not. One winter evening, a letter finally came. It was old and slightly damaged, like it had traveled a long way. Eli opened it slowly, his hand shaking just a little. Inside, there was only one short message. "I'll come back when the snow falls again." That was all. No date, no promise of when, just those simple words. And Eli believed them. Now, 5 years later, the snow had fallen again, and so he stood there. The wind grew stronger, almost like it was trying to push him away. Snow covered the tracks more and more, hiding them from sight. Time passed slowly. Minutes felt like hours. Eli looked down the tracks again. Nothing. For a moment, even he started to wonder. Maybe the station master was right. Maybe no train would come tonight. Maybe the storm was too strong. Maybe... He stopped that thought. Eli reached into his coat and pulled out the letter. The paper was worn and soft from being held so many times. He looked at the words again, even though he already knew them by heart. "I'll come back." He closed his eyes for a second, then put the letter back in his pocket. "I'm still here," he said quietly to himself. The wind howled louder, as if answering him. Then, a sound, very soft at first. Eli lifted his head. He listened carefully. There it was again, a low, distant sound, like metal moving far away, like something slowly coming closer through the storm. Eli took a step forward. His heart began to beat faster. The sound grew stronger. Then, through the heavy snow, a faint light appeared in the distance. Eli did not move now. He just watched. The light became brighter. The sound became clearer. The shape of the train slowly appeared, pushing its way through the storm. It was coming. The train was really coming. Snow flew around it as it moved forward. The engine made a deep, tired sound, but it did not stop. Slowly, it reached the station and began to slow down. Eli stood still, his eyes fixed on the doors. Steam filled the air as the train stopped completely. For a moment, everything felt quiet. The doors began to open, and Eli took a small step closer. He was no longer waiting for the storm to end. He was waiting for her. The train stood quietly at the station, covered in snow. Steam rose into the cold air, moving slowly like soft clouds. The storm was still there, but it felt a little calmer now, as if it was tired too. Eli Turner stood just a few steps away from the train. His eyes were fixed on the doors. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the doors began to open. A few passengers stepped down. They moved quickly, pulling their coats tight around them. No one wanted to stay outside for long. Their heads were down, and their footsteps were fast. Eli watched them, but his heart told him she was not among them. He stayed still. Another door opened. More people came out. An old man, a young couple, a woman holding a small bag. They all hurried away, disappearing into the snow. Eli took a slow breath. Maybe she was not on this train. Maybe the letter was just a memory now. Maybe he had waited for nothing. But then, the third carriage door opened. It made a soft, creaking sound. Eli's eyes lifted quickly. A figure appeared in the doorway. For a second, the snow and the light made it hard to see clearly. Then she stepped down. Clara. She moved carefully, placing one foot at a time on the snowy ground. Her coat was thick and warm, covered with small pieces of snow. A scarf was wrapped around her neck, and her hands were holding her bag tightly. She looked different. Time had changed her. But something was still the same. Eli knew it at once. She was here. Clara stood still for a moment, just like Eli had done before. She looked around the quiet station. Her eyes moved slowly, searching. The place looked smaller than she remembered. The buildings, the platform, even the air, it all felt simple and quiet. Not like the places she had been. Not like the busy cities with bright lights and loud streets. She took a soft breath. Then, she saw him. Eli stood in the snow, not far away. He had not moved. Their eyes met. Everything else seemed to fade. The wind was still there, the snow was still falling, but it felt far away now. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. Eli took a step forward, then another. His boots made soft sounds in the snow. Clara watched him come closer. Her face showed many feelings at once: surprise, relief, and something deeper that words could not easily explain. Eli stopped in front of her. They were close now, close enough to see the small changes in each other. The years had left their marks, but they had not taken everything away. Eli looked at her quietly. Then, in a calm and steady voice, he said, "I wouldn't miss you." Clara blinked slowly. She did not expect those words. Not like this. "You came," she said softly. Eli gave a small smile. "You said you would come back." Clara looked down for a moment, then back at him. "I wasn't sure if I could," she admitted. Her voice was honest. The wind moved between them, but it did not feel cold anymore. Eli did not look upset. He did not ask questions. He just listened. Clara held her bag a little tighter. "Things changed," she continued. "Life, it became busy. There were many chances, many places to go. I thought I had to follow them." Eli nodded slowly. "And did you?" he asked. Clara looked away, thinking. "Yes," she said. "I tried." There was a short silence. The train behind them made a low sound, like it was ready to leave again. Clara looked back at Eli. "But something was missing," she added. Eli's eyes stayed on her. "What was that?" he asked quietly. Clara gave a small, soft smile. "This place," she said. Then she paused. "And you." The words were simple, but they carried a lot of meaning. Eli did not speak right away. He reached into his coat and took out the old letter. It was still folded carefully. "I kept this," he said. Clara looked at it and smiled gently. "You still have it?" Eli nodded. "I read it many times." Clara looked at him surprised. "I didn't think you would wait," she said. Eli gave a small shrug. "I didn't know if you would come," he replied. "Then why did you stay?" she asked. Eli looked at the snow-covered tracks. "Because you said you would," he answered simply. Clara felt something warm in her chest, not from the weather, but from his words. The train whistle blew softly behind them. Time was moving again, but for Eli and Clara, this moment felt like it had been waiting for years, and now it had finally arrived. The train gave a long, soft whistle. It was getting ready to leave, but Eli and Clara did not move. They stood on the platform, facing each other, while the snow continued to fall around them. The world felt quiet again, like it was giving them time to speak. Clara looked at Eli carefully. It had been many years, but he still felt familiar. The same calm face, the same steady eyes. He had changed, but not in a way that made him feel like a stranger. "You really stayed," she said softly. Eli nodded once. "I did." Clara shook her head a little, almost in disbelief. "Most people wouldn't do that," she said. Eli looked down at the snow for a moment. "I'm not most people," he replied. There was no pride in his voice, just truth. Clara gave a small smile, but it faded quickly. "I thought about this moment many times," she said. "I thought maybe you would not be here. Maybe you had moved on." Eli lifted his eyes back to her. "I tried," he said honestly. Clara looked surprised. "You did?" Eli nodded. "Yes, I worked, I stayed busy. I told myself that waiting was not right." He paused for a second. "But it never felt true." Clara listened quietly. "So you kept waiting anyway?" she asked. Eli gave a small, simple answer. "Yes." The wind moved softly around them, carrying small pieces of snow through the air. Clara looked away for a moment, thinking. "I didn't make it easy," she said. "I left without knowing if I would return. I sent letters, and then I stopped." Eli did not look upset. "I know," he said. "You didn't wonder why?" she asked. "I did," Eli answered. "Many times." "Then why didn't you come find me?" Clara asked. Eli thought for a moment before speaking. "Because I didn't know where you were," he said. "And I didn't know if you wanted to be found." Clara felt quiet after hearing that. It was a simple answer, but it was honest. She looked at him again. "I was trying to build something," she explained. "A new life. I thought if I kept moving forward, I would find what I was looking for." "And did you?" Eli asked. Clara did not answer right away. Instead, she looked at the ground, watching the snow fall softly at her feet. "I found many things," she said slowly. "New places, new people, new chances." She paused. "But none of them felt like home." Eli listened without interrupting. Clara took a deep breath. "I kept thinking about this town," she said. "About the quiet mornings, the simple days." Then she looked up at him. "And about you." Eli's expression did not change much, but his eyes softened. "You could have come back earlier," he said gently. Clara nodded. "I know." "Then why didn't you?" he asked. Clara hesitated. "I was afraid," she admitted. Eli waited for her to continue. "I was afraid that things would not be the same," she said. "Afraid that you would not be here. Or worse, that you would be here, but everything between us had changed." Eli thought about her words. "Things did change," he said quietly. Clara looked at him, her heart beating a little faster. Yes, Eli continued. Time passed. We both lived different lives. There was a small pause. But not everything changed, he added. Clara's eyes softened again. What didn't change? She asked. Eli looked at her, steady and calm. I remembered you, he said. Every day. Clara felt a quiet warmth inside her chest. The train behind them made another sound, louder this time. It was almost ready to leave. A conductor called out softly, reminding passengers to return. Clara looked back at the train. She still had a ticket in her pocket. She could get back on. She could leave again. Her old life was still there, waiting. Eli noticed her glance. You don't have to decide now, he said. Clara turned back to him. But I do, she replied softly. Eli did not say anything. He let her think. Clara looked at the train once more. Then she looked at the town, the small station, the quiet streets, the falling snow, and finally, she looked at Eli. I came back for a reason, she said. Eli nodded slightly. I believe that, he said. Clara took a small step closer to him. I just needed to understand it, she added. And now? Eli asked. Clara gave a soft, calm smile. Now I think I do. The train whistle blew again, this time louder than before. The moment could not wait forever, but Clara was no longer unsure, and Eli, he was no longer just waiting. Something was about to change, and both of them could feel it. The train gave one final whistle. It was loud and clear, echoing through the snowy night. Steam rose into the cold air as the engine slowly began to move. Clara stood still. Her ticket was still in her pocket. For a moment, everything felt like it was waiting for her decision. Eli did not speak. He stood beside her, calm and patient, just like he had been for all these years. He did not try to stop her. He did not ask her to stay. He only waited. Clara looked at the train as it started to move slowly along the tracks. The wheels turned, cutting through the snow, taking people to places far away. That life was still open to her. The busy streets, the bright lights, the fast days and long nights. She had lived that life. She had followed it for years. But now, standing here in the quiet snow, it felt different. It did not feel like something she wanted anymore. Clara took a slow breath. The cold air filled her lungs, but it also cleared her thoughts. She looked at the train one last time. Then, she stepped back. Just one small step, but it changed everything. The train continued to move, slowly leaving the station. The sound grew softer and softer until it became only a memory. Clara did not follow it. She stayed. Eli watched her quietly. He understood her choice without needing words. Still, he asked softly, "You're not going back?" Clara shook her head. "No," she said. Her voice was calm but strong. "I've done enough running." Eli gave a small nod. He did not smile big or say anything loud. That was not his way. But something in his eyes changed. Something lighter. Something peaceful. The storm had softened now. Snow still fell, but it was gentle. The wind was no longer strong. It felt quiet, like the night was resting. Clara looked around the station again. Everything felt simple. But this time, it did not feel small. It felt right. "So, what now?" she asked. Eli looked toward the town. "Well," he said, "there's a warm place not far from here, and a good cup of coffee waiting." Clara smiled a little. "That sounds nice." They began to walk together. Their steps were slow, leaving soft marks in the snow behind them. The station grew smaller as they moved away, but neither of them looked back. There was nothing left there for them now. The future was ahead. As they walked, Clara spoke again. "I used to think I had to go far away to find something meaningful," she said. Eli listened. "But maybe I was just looking in the wrong place," she added. Eli glanced at her. "Sometimes," he said, The right place is the one you left behind. Clara nodded. Yes, she said quietly. They walked a little further. Lights from the town began to appear through the snow. Small homes, warm windows, and quiet streets waited for them. It felt peaceful. Clara stopped for a moment. Eli turned to her. "What is it?" he asked. Clara looked at him, her expression soft but serious. "I need to ask you something," she said. Eli waited. "After all this time, why didn't you give up?" she asked. Eli thought for a moment. Then he gave a simple answer. "Because some things are worth waiting for." Clara felt those words deeply. They were not loud or fancy, but they were true. She stepped a little closer to him. "And what if I had never come back?" she asked. Eli looked at her calmly. "Then I would still know that I waited for something real," he said. Clara smiled, her eyes warm. "And now?" she asked. Eli looked at her for a long second. "Now I don't have to wait anymore." Clara's smile grew. The space between them felt smaller now, not because they moved closer, but because the years between them were finally gone. The past no longer stood in their way. Only the future remained. "Let's go," Clara said softly. Eli nodded. They continued walking toward the town. The snow kept falling gently around them, covering their footprints slowly, like the past being left behind. Ahead of them, the lights glowed warmly. A new beginning waited. Not loud, not fast, but real. And for the first time in many years, Eli Turner and Clara were not separated by distance or time. They were walking side by side, together. And this time, neither of them was going anywhere.